JB here. JB here. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. September 4th, 2024. We have about 28 minutes to the open. 1 second here. Talk really quick about the market, some of the names I'm looking at, and go from there. But what a rough session on Tuesday to start September. We have folks coming back from their vacations, the funds who start looking to reposition after the big move from the August lows. And then we had the ISM data at 10 o'clock, and it's funny they use that as the rationale behind the sell-off. Oh, ISM data came in weaker than expected, but so that number when it's under 50 means contraction, and that contraction has been happening for the last 5 months. So all of a sudden it becomes the data point that causes a sell-off. Where was it last month? So the month before. So similar to what happened with the jobs report at the start of August. So we'll see what happens. I did put it on a watch list. I think it certainly is going to put more pressure on the jobs report on Friday, weekly jobless claims, and is this the start of a bigger pull? Or are we going to finally find, is it just some consolidation, or I would say consolidation, but repositioning, find some support here, and then maybe we can find some legs to the upside. It a little tricky here. So some of the charts and some of the things there's it's a 50-50 kind of scenario where I think there's some things you can look at and say, wow, okay, I posted just before 72% of the companies trading on the S&P, the charts, their stocks are trading over their 50-day moving average. So that's somewhat bullish, but does that mean we're overbought? So we'll have to see. That 555 area on the SPY I was talking about being the an extremely spot of strong support and resistance. Took a lot to break through it in the middle of August. Finally broke through it, and then every time we pulled back, it seemed to hold. And then yesterday it seemed like it was holding up, and then all of a sudden at 2 o'clock it just broke, and that was it. And then we traded almost down to the 50-day moving average. So now two key spots I'm looking at on the SPY. I'm not putting my bear suit on, but I'm certainly not going to be in a position where markets continue to pull, and I'm not going to be able to either take advantage via puts or scale out of some of my calls. But the 548 and change, 548.29 on the SPY is the 50-day moving average. So definitely want to see that hold if there's continuation today on some of the weakness. And then 542.50. That would be another big spot. And if we start to break that, then you have to start worrying about a correction and so on and so forth. Same with the small caps. I talked about 215. Would love to see that 215 get recouped. It's probably gonna be tough today, but certainly watch that. You look at the VIX chart, and I don't even know if I put this on the watch list this morning, but just an odd candle. You look, and even the Bollinger Band on the top, it's such a sudden 38% move to the upside. Is this a start? I'm not saying we're going to get 65, but uh, certainly doesn't portend confidence in the market right now. So again, I'm not putting my bear suit on. I always say this. It's always important to kind of keep just tune out all the noise and try and keep things to plans, breaks of support, things like that. Otherwise, you're going to just get feared into selling everything and not being open to upside. And then when the bounce comes or the bomb comes, you miss out. Not only do you close everything out, but then you miss to the upside. So just try. That's some of the kind of the things over the years you learn to do. Here's the chart on the spine. I put this in the chat room. I'll just put it again. Uh, we're over the last time we were at this high in regards to the amount of stocks over the 50-day moving average was the end of March, and then you could see what happened from the end of March into April. So is that the setup we have? I don't know. And then last but not least is that chart from Market Watch, and I like Market Watch in some aspects because sometimes they post some good stuff. A lot of times it's all about clickbait, but if you take a look at the historical performances on the S&P, Nasdaq, and small caps, September by far is the worst performing month. So is some of the sell off yesterday a function of that? Possibly. Again, people that typically July and August are low liquidity months, low volume months. Folks are away on vacation, what have you. They come back to the desk in September, and then the first thing they do is say, "Wow, we've had a huge rally here. The Dow was just at highs on Friday. Let's start to reposition, take some profits, roll into other things." So I think it's a whole culmination of all those things that the sell off. At least some of the reason to sell off yesterday. I don't think it was just the ISM data, but folks have to rationalize moves, and ISM data obviously was the only data piece really yesterday that you could use to say, hey, this is why the market sold off. But I think Friday, that jobs report gonna be really important. All right, so individual names. I added some HPE calls at the open yesterday. I put it on the watch list this morning. Yesterday morning, they report earnings after the close. I don't think it's going to take much. They already reported a strong beat and raise last quarter. I think they're going to do a similar beat and raise. I think even if the market's somewhat weak, I think it could do well. Trade over $20. My spec call should do well. So I like the risk reward. At the same token, if the inline numbers market doesn't like their numbers and the stock just stays flat or sells off, obviously those spec calls won't pay off. Clear Secure was actually holding up yesterday for most of the day before pulling back, closed down 2%. Uh, I mean, it's been on a monster rally, so hard to think it could still close green despite what the market was doing. Still like that one for upside. If it breaks back over 30, I'll look for some more strikes to add to my higher 30 calls. And then last but not least, on the call side, Redfin. So you had that upgrade. B. Riley took it from neutral to buy, took their price target of 13 from 17.50. The stock broke over 10 right after the open, all the way up near 11, and then just gave it almost all of it back with the rest of the market. Still closing the green. Still like this one. I'm probably not going to add anything to my strikes just yet until it breaks over $10. But I keep saying this backdrop. I think what mortgage rates hit the lows not seen in 15 months, and that trend's probably going to continue. As rates go down, you're going to see more supply hit the market. But I think there's also more pent up demand, and I think that's going to out outweigh the supply side. So I think that'll keep house prices elevated. And then you're going to see all this activity on Redfin and Zillow. So I think that all bodes well for Redfin. All right. So now on the flip side, some individual names I'm looking, or at least I traded for downside, and I talk about supports on the SPY. It helps to take emotion, right? I'm a glass half full kind of person. So when I look at the market, I always think, hey, we're going to bounce, or, I'm an optimistic person, but at the same token, you have to be open to downside. So if you're not, then you're probably going to get crushed at some point. But, I was talking 557 on the SPY and 555. So once we broke 557, I started to scale into some puts. And I don't know why I don't have Lamb Research on here, but I went and got some LRCX puts. And again, I say this over and over again about some of these names I get the hedge puts on. It's not that I don't think that they're great stories, that the stock's probably not higher in the coming years. They just offer a great risk reward opportunity for hedges. And you take a look at the two names I added some put hedges on, Lamb Research and ServiceNow. They both have very small implied moves. And I think Lamb Research has a 3% implied move, or 2.8, and it closed down nearly 7% yesterday. So if it closes down another 3% today, the puts that I have are going to be up a couple 100% at least. Similar ServiceNow. ServiceNow I played for puts couple back in August. Again, they had great earnings, hit all-time highs. And who buys puts when the company buys when the company just posted great results? That's what I did, and they paid off. Similar to Lamb Research, small implied moves, which means the premiums are inexpensive on a risk reward basis if we get some follow through on the downside. So 820. You start looking at the 50-day moving average, 792 on now. I'm not saying it gets there, but if the market can't find footing today, certainly one of those names I think could offer a decent or a substantial hedge position. And then last but not least is EMVX. And I finally added some more EMVX puts yesterday. It's funny, I had the September 9s and I closed those out, and they're not even up as much as I thought they would be with the stock breaking on $9 yesterday. Don't be surprised if I add some October 7 strikes somewhere in there. You start looking at the chart, and there could be some gap fills on the downside, and six back to 690 or so. I mean, call me crazy, but maybe that's a possibility. So this company has it's similar to Turns, right? But except Turns, I'm a little more, I'm optimistic on, because the GLP-1 space and some of the early information they've given us. But in regards to ENVX, it's similar to a biotech company. There's a long runway before the company is actually going to be producing, if they ever do, batteries for phone companies, right? I mean that's a fact. So between the time that happens to the time batteries are rolling off their factory to the time it gets into the phones of their OEM, and then to the time that gets to the consumer, it's still years out there. So I think that opens the stock up for some, speculation on both sides. And right now, I'm negative the name, so I think it continues to the downside. Possibly does some gap fills, maybe down, 690. So that's kind of, I said 850, and here we are, pre-market it's 855. So probably 690 or so. That's it, folks. I'll be back on audio later. I put it on the watch list. I'm probably going to try and get on audio at noon, and I'll try and do it again at 2, depending on how the market's doing and what positions I'm in and things like that. Let's have a great day. Rockin'.